I told y'all. Everyone thought they could judge Gorr the God Butcher off of a toy, bruh. And like back then, y'all didn't want him. But now my man's hot. Y'all all on him after that Thor 4 official trailer dropped. Look, we got to talk about Gorr, Thor, Lady Thor, and of course Gorr. And where the hell is this black and white place in the MCU that we're seeing for the first time? Let's break it all down. What's up? I'm Kendall, aka the Sensei here at Normies Nerds. Please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on the grind to 1,000 subs. Let's get it. Now, I definitely want to break this entire trailer down from start to finish, but first, we got to talk about the hottest white man on the internet right now, Gorr the God Butcher. Because just like a month or two ago, y'all were really trying to flame a man's off of a toy league, but whether they changed it up or the toy was just dusty, everyone seems to have changed their mind about that man. He seems to be running shit now. To keep it real for me, Gorr didn't really pop off on first sight like he seems to have for almost everyone else who watched the trailer, but after I rewatched it a few times and tapped into a few things, he started to warm up on me and I'm really feeling him now. First, let's start with the first time we hear Gorr's voice in this shot right here, as this seems to be an asteroid in a ship floating towards that black space necro goo that we see here. But I don't think that this is just any old rock. For some reason, the flat shape on the top and the rigid rocks on the bottom reminds me a lot of what Asgard used to look like, right? And that can mean a lot when it comes to explaining Gorr the God Butcher and his powers and how they could change it up from what they did in the comics. I mean, let's think about it. If this is Asgard, the last time we visited that location, Hela was getting killed by Surtur in Ragnarok, as that was the only way to kill Hela. He might have killed Hela, but it's possible that the remnants of the Necro Sword helmet that Hela was wearing could have evolved and stuck around in that area and continued to grow and fester with the energy that was caused from the explosion of that planet. Because if you look at this area here, it does look like what we see after events where things tend to blow up in the galaxy when I'm thinking about stars or what have you. Look, I'm not an astronomer, but it looks like with all those dust particles around there that type of explosion would have happened with Asgard. And with that rock there and also what seems to be this necro goo that's just right there in space, I think it's very realistic that is how they could be explaining Gorr getting his powers, that maybe he's going to go search for Asgard to be the first place that he takes out, but then he comes across the powers here from this necro. And I know it seems like a little bit of a wild theory, but this could be a way that the MCU is distancing themselves from what Sony is doing with the symbiote. Because in the comics, we all know that the all-black necro sword comes from Null and comes from a symbiote background. But again, Feige has his plans to maybe separate from what the Sony universe is doing, and there was recent news about Sony universe really putting their properties with the associated Spider-Man characters in its own universe. All that being said, I can see this as being a new way to make Gorr the God Butcher's origin interesting, as well as making it pretty relevant to Thor. Next, we see Gorr the God Butcher on what is possibly his home planet that might have been destroyed by the gods. I mean, if you think back to What If, the worst episode to me, but Thor pretty much traveled to Earth and had a huge ass party and damn near destroyed it. That seems to be what gods do in the MCU, judging off of Zeus and what looks to be like more of a chunky version of him, right? So that's your motivation for Gorr. This planet seems to just be destroyed by gods. But in the rest of the shots, I'm curious as to what planet this is right here in this shot, and what power Gorr is tapping into. Because Gorr has this thing called the God Bomb in the comics, but I don't think that this is necessarily it. In fact, it looks like the same place that we see Gorr, Thor, and Valkyrie fighting in the final scene. He also tells Thor, "You're not like other guys I've killed. You've got something to fight for." And hold up, like, bruh, who else have you killed? But him blowing up that planet seems to be the extent of what we get to see about his powers in this trailer here. But I'm all good with it because all in all, Gorr looks pretty good. Like, to be real, I'd be shilling if I said I think he looks great. So I'll just leave it at pretty good, but I can't wait to see what Christian Bale brings to this character. Now, let's run it back to the beginning of this trailer. Drop a like and subscribe because I want to dive deep into this trailer because I think it was an absolutely brilliant trailer. First, Korg's storytelling to the people on this planet is genius. Like, everybody just loves to hear Korg talk. And I think that's something that they knew when they were putting this trailer together. But he details what Thor has been through in a dumbed down version of it, calling him a space Viking and saying he's on a new journey after saving Earth. But he also highlights his workout plan, which, by the way, I guess your boy got to go a little bit harder in the gym today. But then we hear Korg switch up his story as he talks about Thor finding Mjolnir, but it belonging to Jane. And that's where it muddies the water to me when it comes to the continuity of Korg's story, because it seems like this part is early on in the movie based on what Thor is wearing. But in the fight scene here, we see him in that black suit. when he goes back to fight on New Asgard, we see those necrobots, is what I'm calling them. And they really do look more to be like the necro type of material, more than the symbiote type of material that we were thinking that we were getting in the teaser trailer. These seem to be more jagged, more rigid, maybe and not as fluid as what we know symbiotes to be, which is even more indication to me of how it looks similar to what Hela's helmet looked like and how they could be tying that power into that. But if we go on through the fight, Thor sees Jane, except when he recognizes that it is Jane, he seems to be in another suit at another time. My guess is that either something happens in this fight that caused Thor to level up mid-fight, or he goes sometime without knowing that it's Jane. But then we also get a clue that Jane could have been blipped, as she says it's been like, 3 or 4 years since he's seen Thor. But Thor says it's been 8 years, 7 months, and 6 days. That also implies that they actually could have dated for a while after Thor Dark World, being that it is at least 2023 in Thor 4, and Dark World was set in 2013. But it is clear that they're setting up the love element of the story, because Thor sees this as yet another opportunity to actually have love in his life. And bro, you can't really hope for anything but that for him after everything he's been through. But let's move forward to the Viking Bifrost ship, because I love how they're using the goats and Stormbreaker to power this ship. It looks very nostalgic to that culture, if you will. But they also arrive on Mount Olympus, and what I assume is Thor, Lady Thor, and Valkyrie going there to try and warn the other gods about Gorr going through and wreaking havoc. Now, while they're on that ship, Thor is likely talking to Lady Thor about the necrobots and how he's impressed how she handled them. But they also put that over a shot of her fighting on Mount Olympus, and that trips me out as to what they're actually doing on Mount Olympus and why they're fighting. Like, maybe in order to speak to Zeus, you have to fight for an audience, something like that. Because something happens to Zeus, because jump forward, you see Valkyrie fighting with Zeus's lightning rod. Like, yo, I don't think that's something he would just give up. Either she jacked him or he's dead, which is wild, but would make sense because I could see his arrogance leading to him being an easy kill for Gorr. But back to Mount Olympus, we see the Bifrost ship again. Then Thor is fighting in a toga, fighting guards like Jane was, except here we know how it ends by seeing the end of this trailer, that Thor gets captured. Like I said, I'm really confused as to what is going on here when it really comes to Zeus and Mount Olympus playing a role in this film. But on next, we see the Guardians, who I think will be in the early parts of this movie. I don't expect to see them much after that because the final fight scenes look to be between Thor, Valkyrie, Jane, and Gorr. But maybe they do come back at the end to help them get to Gorr, but they're just not really teasing that out, right? We also get a couple shots of Gorr and Thor about to throw down, and Thor looks pissed as fuck right here. Like, his whole demeanor changes. We've seen Thor in serious looks in this film, but right here, bro, he looks like he's about to wreak havoc. He looks pissed off. But bruh, the next shot, whoa, like, what do we have here? The Living Tribunal, or Watu, or maybe just another Watcher. On the other side, Mistress Death, and I can't figure out who those other two are, but I'm pretty sure either a smarter mind on the internet will, or when we actually see it in the movie, it'll be something that blows our mind away. But damn, like, yo, this is wild, and this is something I think I'm going to love about this movie, because I think we're going to be getting a lot of lore filled out in this movie, a lot of lore about what's happened so far in the past of the MCU, especially when it comes to the cosmos. And also, this is the third time that we've seen the Living Tribunal in a Marvel movie or a show in a year. So, bro, they have to be teasing out the Living Tribunal for something big. But last but not least, we got Thor getting flicked too hard, the Olympians being too thirsty, Valkyrie seeming to be reevaluating her whole sexual orientation, as Thor is just letting it all hang out in the breeze. It must not be cold in the room. Yo, maybe we'll be seeing a man butt in every Thor movie now after seeing Hulk's ass in Ragnarok. I guess that's an interesting Easter egg you can go with, right? But look, we also see that Thor is tatted up for Loki. Rest in peace, my bruh. Which, by the way, speaking of Loki, this is all I really expect to see from Loki in this film, as he has bigger fish to fry with the TVA and Kang the Conqueror. With all that to say, yo, this scene again is bringing more trickery, because we have a photo of this scene here with Jane, Valkyrie, and Bast at the bottom of that photo. And there in that picture, the two Asgardians here, Jane and Valkyrie, are not disguised as they are in the trailer. So again, what is really happening in the scene? Like, will they visit Mount Olympus twice? Bruh, I'm gonna need some time to cook up a theory and to figure out what is really going on in this scene here. But we may be getting more clues as more footage is likely to be coming out before this film drops in July. Now we got a lot in the trailer, but we have to expect that there is going to be a surprise in the movie that we do not see in the trailer, and I'm really hoping that surprise is Beta Ray Bill. But I'm very high on this movie, like from the aspects of the action with Thor, from it having some of the same vibes that we got in Thor Ragnarok, which to me is like a top 5 MCU movie. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be getting here and how this movie is really going to evolve the character of Thor, introduce Lady Thor in a way that I think is very tasteful and won't really trigger a lot of people. Yeah, this movie to me is going to really have everything. Like, it seems like we're going to have the laughs, we're going to have the action. The love scenes actually make me feel like we're going to get a bit emotional here. But lastly, like, again, we're going to be touching on one of my favorite parts about the MCU, and that is the lore and building that out. Like, we're really getting introduced to the gods in the cosmos, and I think that's a story that goes on beyond the time of what we've seen so far in the MCU. So I am just all in on this movie, bro. Like, to me, it's an early 10 out of 10. Like I said earlier, though, like, I'm not calling Gorr the God Butcher a 10 out of 10. I mean, I think he's more like an 8.5 out of 10 when it comes to his look. But it seems that Christian Bale is going to do his job in delivering a fire-ass performance. I'm just hyped for this movie. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What are you looking forward to the most out of this movie? And really, what do you think is going on Mount Olympus? Because maybe I'm just clueless. Help your brother out. And also, too, help me out if you know who those other 2 sculptures are in that scene with Jane. Look, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next video.